festival where we're providing people what's new in terms of blockchain and entertainment. To start that, can I presume that everybody in the audience has a fair understanding of what a blockchain is by now? Yes? No? Yes? All right, there's one guy, so I guess we're good. No, it's an immutable, distributed ledger that allows for complete transparency, at least for a public blockchain. And that's a very powerful thing, as we're going to see. I'm also really quickly going to mention the smart contract is a self-executing contract, and I say that because I think everybody here is using them in some way or another, so I wanted to get that out of the way. So, Ian, can you tell us how blockchain particularly is used in your company and what your plans are?
You know, currently our plans are a bit outsized for the bandwidth and throughput for most public blockchains. So we continue to plan for that future where you know, either Lightning networks or the Ethereum Raiden network you know, pulls transaction processing up to speed. I think one of the primary functions that we're looking at is how identity and data collected by VR and immersive computing experiences can be protected and monetized by the user in exchange for tokens or, you know, some other sort of self-determining factor. And that's really where we approach the space. Is from a user advocacy standpoint. You know, the data that VR creators are able to collect is pretty invasive. You know, well, not invasive like you're consenting to it by putting the headset on, but things like pupillary dilation, involuntary arousal, attention on a given piece of content. I mean, this stuff isn't even really being exploited yet, but it will, and I think this is probably what's behind Facebook's large investment. They're not really interested in the next big computing platform as much as they are as the data and the reams of data that they're going to be able to gather from it.
Okay, so to some degree, content creator monetization plays a big role.
Yeah, and also on the part of the user. So content creator monetization, also user monetization. You know, there's a value system that's out of whack right now where platforms are sucking up and monetizing the value that their consumers are and that their users are providing them without providing any kind of fair compensation back to that user. So we're building a model that compensates each user and really delivers them. It's more, think of it like a deist god as opposed to you know, like, I don't know what the alternative is, but you know, the god that interferes in daily life. You know, where you sort of wind the clock and then you let it go, and the users get to choose if this thing is valuable, and they, in doing so, they you know, gather ownership and protect that value.
Okay, thanks. And I hope everybody caught that. There's going to be a continuing theme and through line here. Robert, can you tell us a little bit about Vezt and notably why Vezt uses a blockchain and how that facilitates what you're doing?
Sure. So, you know, in music specifically, the creation of IP and the value of IP is very disenfranchised, right? You'll have the producers, the writers, the people that create the music, in some cases, participating in very little of the revenue, participating in very little of the upside. If you look at the current numbers, things like $68 billion in IP in the music space, and about 10 to 12% of that goes to the people who create it. My business partner and myself, Steve Stewart, who's right over there, we were thinking, why is there a gatekeeper between the music that you like and what gets made? Why is there some executive somewhere saying, you know, rock is over, we're going to try this, or we're going to do that, whatever it might be. And some of these bands and groups still have major fan bases. So I think what the blockchain allows us to do is it allows us to connect the fans or the people that value that IP directly to the IP. And in a very similar way, let the consensus of the value be decided by the people that want to hear it, right? If I want to hear a guy playing a banjo in a banjo album, and I want to write a check to it, and a million other people want to write a check to it, why is there someone gatekeeping that? And ultimately, what the ledger allows you to do is, by consensus, have that narrative, not have a gatekeeper, and allow musicians to continue to create music, continue to monetize, and keep more of that for themselves in the creative process.
Okay, thanks. Kathrine, same question in terms of how Vevue is using blockchain to affect the business model you're putting into place.
Yeah, absolutely. You haven't already caught the commonality between all of us. It's that I think we truly believe in rewarding the users. There's this big discrepancy, definitely, of how people interact with entertainment today, whether that be social media, music, etc. For us, it's video. Everybody can create videos, upload video content, but you aren't necessarily rewarded for that in any type of monetization. Right now, we know YouTube is the largest video social media platform, and you have to hope for 10,000 views before you get a monthly check or something crazy. But through the power of the blockchain, we're able to allow users to enter into a monetization model right off of the bat, and those transfer from wallet to wallet so you can get paid immediately. Thanks to the blockchain, we are also providing copyright IP protection for video creators. So for filmmakers, for music video artists, anybody who collaborates on videos, this is essential moving forward if we want to build a future of transparency and accessibility.
Great, thank you. And Seth, same question in terms of what AlphaNetworks is using the blockchain for specifically.
Yeah, so just as a little bit of kind of background, I've been doing this, doing digital media and tech for a long time. So I was involved in the launch of TiVo. I ran advanced services at DirecTV, had a joint venture with Comcast, worked with Goldman on a bunch of stuff. So, like, the thing that I came into this space thinking is that the media business has always been driven by new technology. It's like sometimes it's caught up sooner and sometimes it's caught up later. But if you think about sort of in my business, like in video, there's broadcast business, which was disrupted by cable and satellite. Cable and satellite were obviously disrupted by broadband. But now we've got this new series of obstacles, sort of similar to broadcast worked for a while, but then people got frustrated because there wasn't a lot of choice. Cable worked for a while, but then people got frustrated by the bundle and sort of the inefficiencies of people paying a lot of money for ESPN, which they never watched, and so forth. So now in this new era, I've actually been involved in the building of a lot of OTT services. And to Robert's point, there's sort of a lot of, or to everybody's point, there's a lot of inefficiency. So, for example, you know, our partners have a lot of shows on the major streaming services. They get virtually no data back on consumption because the traditional model that we have that has not caught up is that a distributor and a producer or a studio are on opposite ends of the table, right? So if a distributor traditionally gives a content creator more data that shows how great their content is doing, their fear is that the agent or the manager or the studio is going to push back for more money. So we're in this situation where not only is data not flowing back to creators, but there's a business case in the minds of the existing kind of stakeholders that it shouldn't, that there's a business case for withholding data. So really, as a short answer to Josh's question, that's why the blockchain is transformative. That notion of a trustless ledger that can be put in place that's sort of unimpeachable and immutable, where we can collect all this data, that's really transformative. So that's one thing that we're doing. We're building, and you can go to our site, but we have an algorithm called proof of engagement, which actually collects every interaction between every user and every video object. But then another aspect of this that's really interesting that has to do with token economies in the blockchain is the idea that if you think about the existing business models, sort of like what happened in music, they're kind of stuck, right? So I don't want to get into what's, you know, the issues with YouTube or Netflix or Apple or any in particular, but if you think about them, they're pretty specific models. Like something costs $9.99 or it costs $4.99, or you're getting a CPM that's basically handed to you that you can take or leave, or people are basically selling their content globally for a 10-year license, which basically gives their content away in every market for a fixed period of time. That kind of made sense when we were moving into broadband, but it creates all sorts of inefficiencies, and it's not particularly fair to content creators. So to the YouTube point, only 3% of YouTube creators get paid above the poverty line. It's probably a fraction of 1% that can make a living. Sort of the same inequities that have guided the music business for a long time, or the independent film community. So those are the things that we're really working to actively rebuild, using sort of the good aspects of streaming video OTT platforms, coupled with a blockchain and AI.
Okay, thank you. So there you have it. We are entering a new utopian world where content creators are paid the value of their services, but as you guys all know, nothing is actually free. So you guys each have a company, and just running down, how do you make money? What's the monetization plan?
That's a really good question. I just want to piggyback off what Seth was saying. I think that, blockchain, for a lot of people, it can seem like a really confusing technology, but as a mechanism, its goal is to wipe out confusion. There are a lot of people making money in that confusion. They do it by, to the point of a lot of our panelists, actually creating more confusion and sowing disinformation and, giving back juke stats and, info that's unverifiable except by them. And so because there's no independent third party, that independent third party would have administration costs that are higher than what its return of value would be. It doesn't exist, and so there are people out there taking advantage of this. And it really stifles innovation, it stifles growth, and what it really does is it stifles economic benefit to producers, to the means of production. And a lot of times it takes a lot of the value created by the means of production and a lot of the value contributed by consumers and kind of ties it up in this confusing, somewhat terrible, overinflated distribution mechanism, middleman in the world.
So VR Playhouse is a philanthropic nonprofit then, right?
I mean, looking at our books, you'd have to assume.
Fair enough.
For us, and I don't want to speak for anybody else on the panel, but a very common way, and this is kind of one of the reasons why we're waiting this out, because I don't know if you guys, the SEC is taking people to the woodshed right now.
They're not that bad.
And it's...
Some deserve it.
Some do deserve it. I am aware and I deal with this stuff all the time, but I specifically want to stay away from legal because it can get hyper-technical beyond what I think the scope of this talk is. So understand regulation is very difficult, landscape is complex, it's very scary, and we can probably...
Absolutely. So a lot of the economic benefit to a company that's implementing a blockchain is in token valuation. So in creating, you sort of create your own money and then you keep a bunch of it, you give a bunch of it out, and if what you're doing is valuable, then that token is assigned value, and then your, the currency of your realm rises in relationship to the dollar.
So you're on the scarcity paradigm. Supply and demand.
I'm not. I want to get off that paradigm. I don't think it works. I think that by saying to somebody, hey, you're going to have to buy this token to use my service is really disingenuous, because you're not going to take other money, you're only going to take your specific money that you created. I don't see that. Got
it. We are definitely going to revisit that as we go down the line. Robert, how do you guys make money?
Well, quite simply, we're a business, ultimately. And we're a business of efficiency. So there's the efficiency of transparency and data. But the way that we make money is we take 5% from the buyer of the IP, of the song rights. The artist, producer, or writer, they get 100% of the money that is raised through the platform. We function like 99%, 98% of the transactions we have are in USD. We do have a token as well. I think, when you're building an economy, you have to live in the real world to show people the convergence. And if you look at our app, it just looks like an app. There's blockchain inside, like there's Intel inside of your laptop. I think that the migration of a thought process of an ecosystem just built on your individual currency, I agree with, it can be a little disingenuous to how do you get people on, right? Like you want 1 million users, you want 2 million users. So we take 5%, and then additionally, we give access to the people that place the IP, to who those buyers are. So we'll monetize that aspect. You want to know where 100,000 people are that bought into your intellectual rights? We'll tell you. You can upsell, you can talk to them. So I think that's our mechanism.
Okay, so something of a traditional model that's fee driven. And,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Understood. Kathrine.
Yeah, so ours much functions like Ian has explained with token valuation. However, we are officially structured as a nonprofit organization. For us, the work is truly about laying the foundation to prove that video content belongs on the blockchain. So through our transactions, we take operational costs and then everything goes back into the ecosystem.
Okay, thank you. And Seth?
What was the question again?
How does AlphaNetworks make money?
That's good. So all kidding aside, if you think about the media and advertising business, not only is it, I think 1.9 trillion last year according to PwC, but it's driven. You kind of step back and think about the California unicorns, the FANGs, or Google, Netflix, in particular, Facebook as well. They really, I kind of argue that their core, message to the street is they're figuring out more efficient ways to monetize those things, right? Google didn't start doing that, but that's what they pivoted to because that's where the money was. And so there is a lot of money in media and advertising. It's a global business, an increasingly global business. We're going to have more and more screens as life goes on. VR will come online. AR will come online, as we go into all the stats about why this is so. But there's going to be more and more video consumption. So if you can create a video platform that can unlock some amount of incremental value, you really are onto real money. So like I think the go-to stat that most people don't know is like a while ago, probably 12 years ago, Blockbuster. Everybody remembers Blockbuster. Blockbuster could have bought Netflix for $50 million. That's how far back on their heels Netflix was. They announced that they kind of had this longer plan to pivot from doing DVDs by mail to online delivery. Nobody kind of bought that message, and so Blockbuster could have bought them for $50 million, and they passed. Now Netflix is actually worth more. The market cap of Netflix is larger than the Walt Disney Company. So let that sink in. The street values Netflix as being worth more than the parks, ABC, ESPN, Pixar, Touchstone, Lucas, Marvel, all that stuff combined. The power of this new platform is judged by global investors to be more valuable. So for some number of companies in this space, I'm certain, it's hard to say. You don't know the specifics of how things are going to play out, but it's pretty clear if you look at the historical trajectory of how the media businesses worked economically, this will be the next wave of it. Maybe it'll happen next year, maybe it'll happen for you or me or whoever, but over time, this sort of, all the things that everybody on the panel is talking about, decentralization, immutable data, more transparent data, more aggressive protection of people's confidential information, more aggressive anti-piracy. We haven't even talked about in terms of video and music, right? Like think about what happened just by, I should shut up. But,
keep going. You're great. I've known you for 10 years. I love you like a brother. How does AlphaNetworks make money?
Because video distribution is inherently inefficient, and if you have a number of different high-value niches that you can scale a platform against, you've all seen there are going to be more and more of this. There'll be OTT networks for bass fishing. There'll be OTT networks for different sports. You can create a globally scalable platform that actually gives content creators great data based on a blockchain that can actually help them grow their businesses instead of negotiating against them. That's a multi-billion dollar.
So sale of ancillary services, transaction fees.
All this traditional business model. So subscription video on demand, like a Netflix model, advertising video on demand, like a YouTube model, transaction video on demand, like a iTunes model, pay-per-view, tip jars. You can do all of those. We're building one platform that can do all of them.
Okay, thanks.
Did
Fantastic.
I finally answer your question?
Yeah, that was the final answer. I got him talking really fast. He doesn't usually do that. In any case, so, you know, in context, where are we in terms of obstacles? What's the biggest thing? Let me straight that back. Other than technology maturing, because we all know that that's still happening, what do we think the biggest obstacles are? And notably, you know, marketing and publicity come to mind. So if you don't have something else, just kind of addressing what that looks like and how you're addressing getting your word out. Ian?
I would say transactions per second. I mean, period, full stop. The pipe isn't big enough to support a lot of the use cases that we imagine seeing.
Okay, do you have a feel for how that's going to change over time, or are we just kind of waiting and hoping?
You know, there are some off-chain solutions being developed. None have really been implemented to my knowledge. There are other types of distributed ledger technologies. Hashgraph is one that's gotten a lot of attention recently. I've been following that one for a while. I think it's really, really fascinating. I think another big challenge is volatility, token volatility. And I'm actually really curious to hear from you guys. I mean, I have ways that I think, you know, inflationary mechanisms are not a bad thing in terms of dealing with that, but I'm really interested in hearing how, you know, because when you're doing a business on the blockchain, you're not just running a business, you're also like running a publicly traded company that is creating its own like coin of the realm, and so you're also like an armchair economist.
Got it. Robert, hold on. I want to hop to Kathrine for a second for counterpoint. Now, you guys are on the quantum chain and functioning. Can you talk a little bit about that, and I suppose whether you're still seeing that as a tech obstacle and where things need to go in order for Vevue to grow and prosper?
Yeah, we've been super fortunate to build on top of the quantum blockchain, which is based out of Shanghai. Their focus is on decentralized applications. So right now we're the only decentralized social media, video media platform that you can execute smart contracts through a mobile app. And these happen in seconds. Absolute, like, I think their transaction rate is like 17 transactions a second. So it's working actually pretty well for us. We've seen that they've been able to develop their technology as fast as we can keep up with them. But I think that in terms of a large challenge, yes, the technology is still embryonic, but the entire industry as a whole is so new. Like, honestly, this is kind of a pat on my back as well, but these are all unicorns in the fact that you guys like have actual things working on blockchain, like doing stuff. There, billions of dollars were invested in ICOs in the blockchain last year, and very, very few of these ICOs actually turned into products, working products, things that we're actually talking about now. So this is very, very rare, and I commend all of you guys because it's super duper hard to build in an atmosphere that has never been done before, to face those technological challenges, to educate people on the steep learning curve of what this technology can bring. Like, these are insurmountable challenges, and so as an industry as a whole, I think that it's our responsibility to continue to not only educate people, but to bring other professions into our industry, like people with great soft skills for communication, people who you would never think should belong in a sector that is like super tech heavy, like school teachers or, you know, whoever. All these people, they're the ones who are going to end up using this technology later. So by bringing in these different professions, we are able to start to mature and understand how we can communicate this development better.
Thank you. All right, back to Robert for, go ahead.
I was going to address his question, actually. So the issue is not a company issue. An issue is a market issue. So, my background is in quantitative trading and finance, and Apple isn't looking how to regulate the volatility of their stock. There are market makers and ancillary companies that make money and benefit off of your position. The problem with the tokens is you have a massive diversified marketplace to buy and sell them. You have exchanges in Japan, some exchanges you don't even know where they're located, right? So what the tokens need is an interest in the token itself, separate from what you're doing. Your job is to build a company, build a product. If you're having to worry about, God, the tokens all over the place, there's not enough players, real players, to market make that position. So ultimately, it becomes almost like a derailment from the goal. Your goal isn't market stability of your token. Your goal is to create a product. But because it is the coin of the realm, you keep on looking in that direction. There should be more market makers. There should be less exchanges so that your issue is not as grand as it is. And that's the truth in the regular stock market.
Fair enough, and just chiming in from my own experience, there is definitely a reckoning happening with the number of exchanges that are out there. It is boiling down. There are market makers who are developing, and there are also a number of exchanges that are putting out products that allow cross-token exchange without necessarily needing to run off from one block to another. Horrible explanation, but I think you get where I'm going. Seth, obstacles to AlphaNetworks.
Well, let me talk about it. So I'm also head of biz dev for a fund called Alphabet Fund, which some of you may have heard of, which is a fully regulated crypto fund. So let me talk about that on the other side. What Kathrine said, I think, is huge. There was such a glut of ICOs last year, and the euphoria was so high that we're definitely in a period of reckoning. So that's one thing. And the good projects are now, to some extent, suffering from the fact that so many, my partner calls it, the head of our fund calls it, rocket ships on the blockchain. On the blockchain, there were so many of those that's hurting. I think probably it's worth saying without going down the slippery slope that Josh doesn't want to go to. Assuming we're all American, it's that's not an advantage. In the last 4 months, I've been in Korea 3 times, Singapore 3 times, Japan, Germany, and England. And I think being here is just frankly, harder than some other markets. I really I think it was Robert or Ian made the point about this being 95. I think that's absolutely true. If you look back historically, Brock Pierce is an old friend of mine who some of you may know. I teach at USC. He actually has this amazing slide of these people ripping the internet apart as this sort of Ponzi scheme from roughly 94, 95. We're kind of in that period now where a lot of people are like, yeah, this is ridiculous. So we just have to kind of get through that period to the other side. So I think those are kind of the three things. The euphoria of last year, the domicile issue, and then the fact that these things just take time.
Right. Thanks.
There's also, I want to get your feedback on this too, that there's this idea that's been put forward that, during the ICO craze, everybody raising money, and this goes into the scarcity economics, and this I think is something that we need to address as, as technologists and technologists in conjunction with the economy of these tokens. But, as everybody was raising tokens, the value's going up and up, up and up because more people want to get in. They're buying Ethereum. They're running into bottlenecks. Coinbase is crashing and holding and all these things, right? And then, okay, so now we've, a company has raised all this Ethereum in exchange for these tokens, and now they have to pay people to make stuff and pay rent on a building and pay Amazon for server space, because the decentralized future we imagine is still being run largely on the backbone of these large FANG companies. Yeah,
we're almost entirely still centralized.
We've got to rent from decentralized companies while we build a decentralized part. So all of this Ethereum then is getting sold, and at the same time it's getting sold, the price is dropping. So the value of that raise is getting cut in half or into a tenth of what it was originally. I mean, that is extreme.
Yeah, that's actually going to kill a lot of projects. There's no question. And go ahead.
So there's still private equity out there. I mean, this whole idea that you only have to be in one camp or the other is kind of ludicrous to me.
Yes.
Like, I think if you have plenty of equity because you did a raise and you want to add value to your token holders, go to a venture fund, discuss your project, talk to regular funding sources. Not to dissuade the idea or the dream of decentralized everything, but that's not the reality of where we are. We're kind of like, remember AOL, and you'd be like trying to get online, and you were waiting a while? That's where we are with the blockchain. Is it going to get there? Without a doubt. So much money has been raised. I mean, IBM, Amazon, serious companies are looking at this, right? Besides all the money that was raised off of it. The problem with the first round is 99% of the people didn't know what they were doing. They had a great idea. There was a white paper. Here, get in, right? But there's a million great ideas. It's what you do. It's the deliverables. Your team, what you bring to the table. I mean, everybody here has a real product. I mean, you would be hard-pressed in the space to find someone that has something legitimate. I think that's the value. I think you could go to a lot of venture funds, raise the additional money, and continue to build.
Right, I completely agree. And just in terms of what I've seen a lot of these companies, the two magic words are use case. The question is, what is the actual use case? What is the company doing? What value is it delivering? And then, why does it need to be on a blockchain? Why is there a token? What does that token do? And there are lots of different varieties of tokens. A token is definitely not the same as another token. So, speaking of the legacy companies, legacy is the wrong word, the larger companies, one thing that all of your companies have in common to some degree is that they cut in on legacy models, content creation and distribution, but those companies are not going to go away. So within your particular verticals, where do you see the big boys playing? And Seth, I'm going to start with you because you know this stuff so well.
Like the thing that I think about is I was a governor of the Television Academy for a long time, the Emmys group, and we expanded the Emmys to include VR and all sorts of stuff. And I want to say it was 2007. It was around then. The first major network to start streaming broadcast TV was ABC. So Lost was the biggest show in the world at the time. And it was fascinating, and it's kind of eerie because it's all happening again, the way things do. There was this huge battle where people were like, we have to put stuff on the internet because that's where everybody's going to go. We have to start streaming. And there were these people literally saying, you're going to kill the TV business by doing this. You can't do this. It's going to undercut our business. So I think right now we're kind of in that period where some of the smarter legacy companies are going to work with companies like us. They're going to, because it's hard to do that stuff internally. It's easier to do it from the outside and then create partnerships. But they're all looking at how to work, how to do this stuff. But I think there'll be a lot of caution and a lot of fear. And also, as opposed to the first round of the internet, if you want to think of this, and it's not exact, but in some ways it's fair enough. The internet of money. Taking on the entertainment business or the music, taking on the music business is one thing. Taking on the banking business, that's a whole other order of magnitude. So there's sort of more inherent resistance in some of the old school companies, I think, Josh, because they've got banking relationships, and without getting into specifics, I have a lot of friends that are sort of the early Bitcoin OGs. They talk to the Fed, you know this. They talk to the DOJ. There's not a major country or major bank in the world that is not under the covers exploring all of this. But are they going to continue to throw sand on the fire for a while it happens? I don't know. So it's all happening behind the curtains. And clearly we know Amazon, Facebook, IBM, all these guys are working on it. It's going to come, and I think what we hope is that they'll partner with small, more nimble, agile companies like this to make it happen.
Wasn't there just a news item about the Federal Reserve doing some kind of coin or some kind of blockchain?
FedCoin?
FedCoin.
For Josh.
Yeah, I mean, all right, cash is going to go away. That's inevitable. I'm not exactly sure exactly when, but yes, they're definitely.
It's already gone away. That's the thing. You already have crypto in your wallet. Try to go to the bank and get 50 grand out. They don't have it. It's X's and O's. It's numbers, digits.
You're doing it right after this panel.
Sorry. I'm going to stop right there.
Well, we've got you on the mic, however. I did want to ask you the question about the legacy companies. Your company particularly facilitates creation of content, and that's an area where a lot of these large record companies made their money. They funded the master recording, they own the master recording, and they sucked up a piece of the composition and everything else. So how do you play with those guys?
Well, we've taken 3 meetings with Sony. We're flying up to New York to meet with them. We're talking to large publishers, tech companies. We're a marketplace. So here's the thing. While they were sleeping, Steve Jobs said, I'm going to put music on this platform. I'm going to pick $1.99. It could be a crappy song, it can be a great song. By the time the record labels woke up, their masters were worth nothing, right? How do you diversify? I mean, I like Drake, but why does every artist have to sound like Drake or Rihanna? The diversification of risk isn't there, right? This guy has to sound like this guy because this is what's selling, and we're just going to keep on doing that. So you need to bring in an aspect that helps to leverage that marketplace. More A&R through the platform, putting up less money to find artists, and giving value to those old structures, right? Amazon gives value to people that want to sell product. In some cases, those are companies. It's not just some guy named Joe selling stuff through eBay. In some cases, it's a legitimate business. I think you have to build for the future, but you have to live in the real world. So we collect royalties from the old structure. We put that in the blockchain, so what he owns, he knows, and the royalty collection is transparent. Would we love it to be soup to nuts, all blockchain and immediate? Yes, but it's not there, right?
Do you see your company as an acquisition target for those companies?
Hopefully. I don't know. I mean, look, it depends on where you're at. Think about Netflix, 50 million. They could have had, but Blockbuster said no. Sometimes you just, can I cuss? You gotta not give a fuck and do it your way until people turn around. At the beginning, you're crazy, and then at some point, people are like, that's genius. It's not a big difference, right? Sometimes you gotta run the gauntlet.
People are swearing this is officially a successful panel. I'm very happy about this. Kathrine, how do you guys plan on playing with the big boys, if at all?
Yeah, I agree a lot with what Seth said about enterprises or legacy companies needing to adapt to this technology because it's definitely the future from our standpoint, and I think from a lot of our standpoints, we're small, so we're agile. We're able to move faster in development. I like to call it transparent development. We are always updating in front of our community, asking them for feedback, and this is something that enterprises don't normally have within their capacity. So to be able to move forward with that at the rate that we're doing will push them forward and hopefully will make us a sweet gem for them to adopt later if that's part of our roadmap. But yeah.
Okay, so running down the road again, just what do you think are the qualities that an entrepreneur needs to be able to bring to the table in order to succeed in this type of industry? And other than crazy, brave, and stupid, what do you think, Ian?
I was just going to say crazy, brave, and stupid, so you took it out of my mouth. No, I mean, I think the ability to control one's fear response and be able to, rationally process really bad news is something that if
All the news you get sometimes.
don't have, keep your job.
Fair enough. Robert?
I mean, I think Elon Musk is like the biggest entrepreneur I know, multi-billionaire, but always taking risks. And he says it's like chewing glass, staring into the abyss, and always kind of moving sideways. And that's very, very true because when you're pitching something that hasn't been done, right, and you're trying to change the paradigm of marketplaces that are entrenched, you got to have some of that, I'm going to chew some glass, I'm going to stare down at nothing, but I'm going to keep moving forward by any means necessary. So I think, to me, she's got to have that courage to put up with the pain and move forward.
There will be a glass chewing contest after the panel. Kathrine, what do you think?
Yeah, it's absolutely the fortitude to keep going day after day, especially when you see all the ICO stocks crash and your valuation goes to a tenth of what you raised. Just like Ian said, it is like the bottom of the barrel some days, but you have to have the fortitude to believe that what you are doing is absolutely necessary, and you have to continue to educate people on why they need it. And I think that's an insurmountable challenge for all entrepreneurs, especially in our industry.
So I'm going to change this up for Seth. So Seth teaches USC, as we've mentioned. So instead of saying, what do you need? Have you seen any students go by your class, you just looked at them and said, yeah, that guy's going to be able to do it, and you could tell us why? Or girl?
Wow, that's a good question. I never thought about it. Yeah, I mean, a couple of them, we do these final projects. I'm an adjunct, so I teach one course a year, but we do this final project where they have to pitch a new business, and a couple of them have actually done the things that they pitched and gone on to do it. I never thought about that. That's a good question. I think probably the two things, it's similar to what everybody else was saying. My favorite quote is Picasso said, anything new, anything worth doing can't be recognized. That's the scary part when you wake up at 3 a.m. Not that it's ever happened to me, but you know, like when you're like, oh my God, what am I doing? It's never been done before. But that's why it's kind of worth doing. I think like the other piece of that, I'd be curious to see what they think if we have time. But if you have a background in the business that you're doing, which frankly a lot of the 2017 vintage ICOs, I think that was a big issue, especially as an investor. It's like, I'm going to be a dentist on the blockchain. I've never been a dentist, but sounds great. I want to be a lawyer. Like, how does somebody get into the music business? These guys understand every aspect of it. Of course they should do it, or independent film, or VR. But there were a lot of these companies. If you understand the trajectory of the business that you were in and you studied it, then you can kind of have a better sense when that, you know, at 3 a.m. of going, all right, shit, this is scary, it's not been done. But if I look at all of the other things that were like this, where they had a pivot, like we don't have time, but like I've had these conversations actually with Ted Sarandos at Netflix. They went through this. So, I mean, I think if you understand where you came from in the business, that's a huge help. And probably the students that I had that were good, they had studied what they were going to do well enough that they could make informed guesses as well.
It's a team. You're 100% right. Can that team deliver?
Well, that's as good a place to end as any. Thank you, everybody, for participating in the panel. Thank you, HETFEST, for having us. It's been wonderful, and thank you all. You're obviously all very generous. Have a great rest of the festival.